Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by Crown Royal.
Good morning and welcome to the Week 14 edition of Fantasy Football Live. The fantasy postseason is here. I am Liz Loza, and joining me this morning in our all-virtual studio is Andy Behrens from Chicago, Matt Harmon from Los Angeles, Tank Williams from San Francisco, and back again to offer his betting analysis from Mad Bets and as the host of The Rush, Mr. Jared Quay. All right, guys. Leagues with 6 or 8 team playoffs are into elimination games now. Everybody's going to need a hero. So who are you hoping is a hero for your fantasy squad today? Andy, kick us off.
Well, I think people know that I have a pretty significant investment in James Robinson this season, so obviously I need some production from him. But the unit that I'm looking at is actually the Jets offense. Why is that? That's because in 3 separate leagues I have stashed the Rams D and the Browns D because they are the 2 teams that face the Jets in weeks 15 and 16. So Jets, I just need you to keep doing what you're doing. Throw those picks, take those sacks, continue to not score ever. This is going really well. This could be a smooth landing for me.
Oh, Jamal Adams' revenge game today. That'll be interesting. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, in a few leagues that I care about a lot, secured that first round bye, so I'll be kicking back and relaxing in several spots here, but also the same as it ever was. The folks I need to be the heroes are the Bills, the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. Those stacks have been very profitable here all year, and I'd love just let's get one more of that. Let's get another round of that, especially against the Steelers defense, whatever. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, counting on you two today.
All right, that's fair. Lots of Cole Beasley questions already. Can't blame him after last week's performance, obviously. Tank, what about you?
Man, so I didn't trust Derek Carr enough to start him against the Jets last week, and now I got to throw him in there against that Indianapolis Colts defense. But I got to say, I had a friend that reached out to me last week, and they were like, should I start Kirk Cousins over Justin Herbert and Deshaun Watson? And I was like, yeah, and that ended up panning out for them, but I don't think I trust myself enough to start Mike Glennon over Derek Carr, so that's what I'm tilting over the next hour and a half.
Well, that is a tilt for sure. Don't blame you. Jared, you were crowing a little bit about all your fantasy squads. Who do you need to step up?
Oh, man, I need Joshua Patrick Allen to play amazing today versus the Steelers. I want him to take the Steelers' top defense and make them look like the Jets trying to secure Trevor Lawrence. I need him to be throwing touchdowns to Diggs. I need him to throw touchdowns to Cole Beasley and just be amazing.
You and Matt are both keeping an eye on that Buffalo game. For me, I mean, I need a million little miracles, but it would be nice in a tight end premium league to see Hayden Hurst, I don't know, do something, which could happen with Julio Jones not in the lineup. I will say otherwise, like in real football language, I am very much looking forward to seeing what Doug Peterson does with Jalen Hurst in this game. I mean, Jalen Hurst this is going to be a fascinating endeavor. It'll probably be a painful one as well, but that's what you get with the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, don't forget, this show is about you and helping you get those lineups set to hopefully bring home some hardware in your fantasy leagues. So send your roster questions on Twitter at Yahoo Fantasy using the Ask FFL hashtag, of course, or drop a question in the chat. We'll try to answer as many as we can on the show. Plus, our own Scott Pianowski is responding to questions live on Twitter all morning long. Let's check in on the latest injury updates now. DeAndre Hopkins and Kenyon Drake are both active for Arizona in the Big Apple today. They were both limited in practice this week. As expected, Christian McCaffrey will not be in uniform today for the Panthers. There is hope, however, he will return this season, but it's back to the Mike Davis show against Denver. Myles Gaskin will miss today's game after being added to the COVID-19 reserve list yesterday, with Matt Breida also out. The Finns will go with DeAndre Washington, Patrick Laird, and Elijah McGuire against Kansas City. If you're in a tough spot, Washington, by the way, is still available in around 80% of Yahoo leagues. And finally, running back Josh Jacobs is expected to return this afternoon against Indy after missing last week with that ankle injury.
All right, our first over-under of the show. It's a player already mentioned here, Jalen Hurts, making his starting debut. We've set, this is such a reachable fantasy line, 16.9 fantasy points. I will start us off. I'm taking the under, and this is not really even pessimism about Hurts long term. I think he's going to be fun. There's obviously a rushing upside here, but he's facing New Orleans today, and New Orleans in their last 5 games has not allowed more than 16 total points. This has been a dominant defense lately. They're third in the league in sacks. They're fifth in interceptions. Hurts is also going to have to deal with all the stuff that doomed Carson Wentz, right? Leaky O-line, questionable receiving core. So I don't think he gets there. I'm going to take the under on this one. Tank, that's a good-looking shirt you're wearing today. Do you agree?
Yeah, we're going to get into the shirt later, but I'm going under too because you know you're going to wince when it hurts behind that Eagles offensive line, right? Like, that's what you said. You already threw out all the stats. Things aren't going to change. Like, the Eagles offense has 53 sacks. That's the most in the league, and the Saints defense is only giving up one rushing touchdown. I feel like that's Hurts' best asset is his legs, and he's going to be running around a lot, but it ain't going to be in the end zone. I'm going under.
Jared, do we have a sweep?
No, I don't have the same shirt as you guys, so I can't have the same answer. I'm going over here with Jalen Hurts. I just think that there's new magic. Anytime a new quarterback gets entered, there's new hope. I don't think the Saints have enough film on him, so I just think he will get a couple giant plays. And I just think the Eagles need something. They need a spark. And the Saints, they're due to let a game up. They always do every year. They let Kirk Cousins in the playoffs have a great game. So I don't see why Jalen Hurts can't have one in the fantasy playoffs.
All right, it's reasonable. It's a reasonable take. We'll see if we can't get a sweep for you guys later in the show.
Let's stick with some more negativity here. Thanks a lot, Andy and Tank, for that. That one hurt the heart a little, but let's keep going negative. Let's do off their game, the guys that we expect that are, these are players you're usually going to start, at least more than 50%. And now this week, they're going to disappoint you here in a very crucial week. Let's get it started with Liz. Which stud are you projecting to come way under expectations this week?
After Marvin Jones pulled off an 8-catch, 116-yard and touchdown effort against the Bears, people are high on him, right? And obviously with Kenny Golladay out again, he has been receiving a huge volume boost. He's drawn double-digit targets in 3 of his last 5. But this week, my goodness, even with the bevel bump, he's going to be drawing coverage as the wide receiver 1 against Jair Alexander. That's no joke. Alexander has allowed a passer rating of just 85.6. He's only given up 403 yards total on the season. I am downgrading Marvin Jones to the wide receiver 30 area.
Oh, yeah. Marvin Jones might be more than 50% started in Yahoo leagues or whatever, but I've gotten him right exactly 0%, and I agree with you this week, so we'll see how that one rolls out. Andy, give me your stud that you expect to disappoint folks here.
Yeah, I'm terrified of starting Kyler Murray this week, and that seems like a crazy thing to say, right? He's still the top scorer at his position on the season, but you look back at these last 3 games, he has only 15 rush attempts, no rushing touchdowns. That shouldn't even really be an issue for a quarterback, except that he ran for a score in literally every game to start the season for 10 weeks. So that is a concern. His last 2 games, he's been held under 200 passing yards, so that's another worry. And then he's facing the Giants defense this week, and they were hitting a week ago against Seattle. Held Russell Wilson to only 260 passing yards, 1 touchdown, a couple of takeaways. This could be a rough spot for Murray.
Yeah, a little bit of good news, bad news there for me. I have Kyler Murray as my fantasy quarterback in one of my leagues, but I got to buy. So maybe next week we can pick up the game, Kyler Murray. Now for a guy I don't have on any fantasy teams, and I'm thankful, it's Miles Sanders. Woof. Things have gotten bad for Sanders of late, and you would think that, Jalen Hurts, a rushing quarterback coming into the mix, maybe this boosts the running back. We see that sometimes, but I'm not so sure that Doug Peterson even wants to design a creative run-first offense for this guy, because I'm not sure that Doug Peterson really wants to be coaching Jalen Hurts, but that's another conversation. Sanders, anyways, he has 18 touches over his last 2 games. You all know I don't care about drops that much when it comes to evaluating wide receiver play. I think it's a little overrated of a factor, but Sanders has, per PFF, a 30% drop rate on the year. That is not what you want, and I don't think you're looking for a bounce back against New Orleans and their second-rate run defense by DVOA. Now, a player who's absolutely not off his game, a player who's absolutely cooking going into the fantasy football playoffs is Raiders tight end Darren Waller. I got a chance to sit down with him after his monster game against New York and catch up with him on all things Las Vegas Raiders right now. Let's take a look. In daily fantasy especially, if you didn't have Darren Waller in your lineup, no Darren, no money, man. You're not going to win that week if you didn't have Darren Waller. Is there something that goes through your mind in the game, early on? I'm talking first quarter when everyone else at home can see that's the type of week it's going to be. Is there something that goes through your mind too, where you're just yeah, I'm in the zone, I'm cooking, and I can do basically whatever I want against this defense.
Yeah, after that first third down conversion, like the first catch, I was like, I felt good about it. And then having 3 more catches that drive and with a touchdown, it was like, this could be the start of something. And I'm just in there having fun. It's not effortless, but it's like I don't even have to really try too hard. It's just like, I'm in that flow state. So it was just an incredible space to be in. And, it's funny, like I didn't even know that I had like the stats I had in the first half. So, but it was like, it just felt fun. And it was like, people always talking about fantasy, like guys on the team are like, man, probably killing fantasy or whatever. And it's just like something you laugh about, but we was just locked in.
What is that discussion when it comes to like fantasy or whatever? Do you guys talk about it during the game?
There are guys on the team that will play fantasy and like they'll be like, I got you on my team. Like, what you doing this week? Like it's playful, but they also really will have me on their team. So they're just like, it's something that we laugh about and joke about, and it just, keeps things light on the sideline.
So you guys, the Raiders I would say you've exceeded some expectations this year. You're making that push towards the postseason, looking to get an AFC playoff spot. What's the vibe around the team right now, as you're pushing, making these last few weeks here, man, making that final push to get into the postseason?
People are excited. We got 3 of our last 4 at home against, other teams that are in similar positions as us, trying to make their push for the playoffs. So, it's, you're playing good teams and, you want to be playing your best football at the right time in December. So we're just excited to, be able to do that here at home and not have to travel coast to coast anymore. So we got everything that we could have wanted, and we just got to go out there and just handle business.
Now let's hit up social media and get to some of your roster questions. Don't forget to use the hashtag AskFFL on Twitter. All right, our first tweet comes from Gary, and Gary Goldberg asks, another Jalen Hurts question. Should he start Jalen Hurts or Phillip Rivers? Matt, Tank, I think I know how you both feel, but Jared, make an argument for Hurts, or are you not that bullish after all?
I'm Team Hurts here. I think I like Hurts. Obviously, it's your fantasy playoffs, and so Hurts is a beast here. I think he can run the ball. He possibly can score on the ground and through the air. I think that the Eagles will have some new plays, obviously, with a new quarterback that the Saints won't be prepared for. If it's your playoff, though, I would say Phillip Rivers is just a safer bet. But, you didn't get here without taking risks, obviously, if those are your options. So let's fire up Hurts, man. Let's get some new luck and get some energy.
Ooh, Jared, you had me going there for a second, but I like the way you brought it back. You brought it back to a nice, reasonable take, so much so that you're going to get this next question. Are you ready? It's from Stephanie, and she wants to know whether she should start Ty Johnson, who popped last week in relief of Frank Gore, or DeAndre Washington, who has a big opportunity, obviously, this week.
You got to go Washington in a revenge game here. I think the Dolphins and Chiefs game should be closer. And the Chiefs, they let the run go. They know they're going to score points, so you can run on them if you want, but they're going to outscore you through the air. And it usually doesn't work well for them, so I like Washington here. And Ty Johnson is splitting it with one of the U's greatest, Frank Gore there, who will be back. So I just think that the Seahawks game might get out of hand for the Jets. And with that being the case, it's going to be hard to run the ball. So let's go Washington, baby. Miami, make it happen.
All right, this next tweet is for Andy Behrens, but Andy Behrens doesn't get to answer it. So I'm sorry, James, you'll have to deal with a runner-up. Let that be Matt. Matt, should James start DJ Chark, Antonio Brown in a potential shootout, or Kiki Cutie versus those Chicago Bears? Andy Behrens' Chicago Bears, in fact.
Yeah, I'm not starting Antonio Brown because, he's basically the guy that has screwed up this Buccaneers offense. It is what it is. Move along from there. Chark is interesting. It's sort of a boom-bust wide receiver 3-play. But give me Kiki because, listen, not only do you get to start a guy who is essentially now perhaps the top receiver attached to Deshaun Watson, you also get the benefit of starting a guy that every single time he catches a pass, he dunks on Bill O'Brien. Like, what an embarrassment for this team to hand out all that money to Randall Cobb when Kiki might be the better slot option to begin with. We saw last week he got down the field. Like, he's not just a pop gun slot receiver. He had over 12 air yards per target. This Bears defense, they're sort of packing it in here at the end of the year. They're like, well, what's the point? What are we doing here? I think it's a good week to play Kiki. Probably, without Cooks especially, he might be a guy that I'm playing every single week.
All right, final question here. This one's for Tank. Tank, Richard asks, PPR or running back dilemma, J.D. McKissick, a questionable Josh Jacobs, or a questionable Ezekiel Elliott. Who do I start? Thank you. And thank you, Richard, for saying thank you.
It's PPR, and I understand J.D. McKissick doesn't have to deal with Antonio Gibson, and so he'll probably get the lion's share of the passing game work, even though you have to deal with Peyton Barber as far as the running game. But give me Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, I know he's been kind of battling a little bit of an injury, but he's going against that Cincinnati Bengals defense, and they're pretty bad. I like the way the Cowboys showed up. At the very least, against the Baltimore Ravens, the wide receivers look serviceable, Andy Dalton looks serviceable, and I think that Zeke can do just enough to show a little bit more value than those other guys, so give me Zeke.
Tank, you are always better than just serviceable. Thank you. Now it is time for our first break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, NFL analyst Mina Kimes returns to our virtual tailgate with Tank. Don't go away.
Don't be afraid of a breakup. It might be time for a player to take the bench. They may need a Crown Royal water break.
Welcome to the Crown Royal Water Break, and once again we get to sip a little whiskey and talk fantasy football with Mina Khan. So Mina, first, thanks for joining me again, and I see you wore your Mina hat this time to mess me with the Tank hat.
Exactly, I saw your self-promotion, I thought I would do a little self-promotion of myself.
I like it. So first we're going to start off with the NFC East now. The Giants pulled off the unthinkable in Seattle last week, and then the team from Washington had the 72 Dolphins popping champagne on Monday night after upsetting the Steelers. So tell me this, the Giants are squaring off against the Cardinals, and then Washington is facing the 49ers. Like, which one of those NFC East teams has the most fantasy juice in Week 14?
I like the Giants better from a fantasy perspective. I think both these games will actually be pretty close, but the Washington football team, I just don't think they match up well with San Francisco. And it's looking like Antonio Gibson won't play. I know he missed much of the last game, but to me, that was going to be the mismatch opportunity versus that Niners defense. Whereas I actually really like this New York Giants offense in this particular matchup. We saw Wayne Gallman pop off some big runs last week. I think he'll have similar opportunities against Arizona. Darius Slayton was pretty quiet with Colt McCoy, but if Daniel Jones is under center, those two have a lot of chemistry. And the Cardinals DBs, they're just not great. There's not really a nice way to say that. So I see Darius Slayton potentially having a big comeback day.
Okay, now years past, like I've never passed up a chance to, sprinkle a little bit of foolishness when it comes to the Cleveland Browns, but it looked un-Cleveland-like against the Titans last week. Can they keep the party going in Baltimore against that tough Ravens squad?
I think they can win the football game, but from a fantasy perspective, it's a little dicey. This Ravens pass rush is like night and day compared to the Titans pass rush that let Baker Mayfield do whatever he wanted last week. So he's going to have a more challenging time. Look, Nick Chubb's Nick Chubb. He's a beast. I think he's the best back in the NFL. I still start him. The rest of the Browns, I'm not so sure. It depends who else is on your roster. Like, I really like Jarvis Landry, but the Ravens corners are really good. And with Baker under pressure, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a relatively quiet day.
Now, lastly, I want to talk about this Sunday Night Football matchup with Josh Allen and Ben Roethlisberger. Now, the last time we spoke, you had Steelers fans riled up about Big Ben's deep ball or the lack thereof. But he's entering Buffalo, where he has a pretty good matchup against that Bills pass defense. At the same time, Josh Allen's going against the toughest defense for fantasy quarterbacks. So you're going to take a water break from Big Ben or from Josh Allen?
I wouldn't take a water break from either. Look, the Steelers' defense is very good, but this Bills' offense right now is absolutely rolling. I think the Steelers' defense are going to do a better job stopping them than the Niners, but that Bills team just has too many weapons. So I think Josh Allen will put up points. Meanwhile, on the other side of the football, I'd say my takes about Ben have aged pretty well, frankly, given the last few weeks. But I'll also say the Steelers offense has played some really tough defenses. Washington and Baltimore, those are two of the best defenses in the NFL. So while the Bills defense has improved, they're not nearly as good as those two defenses I mentioned. So I think the Steelers offense will have some answers for them.
Now, with the holidays right around the corner, like, how do you plan to mix Crown Royal with your football to create the ultimate holiday cheer?
You know, I'm watching football at home these days like everyone else. So I'll be relaxing on my couch, especially as the evening games approach with the Crown Royal. But make sure to take water breaks always.
Yeah, so thank you, Mina. And remember, fam, as she said, Crown Royal is the perfect addition to your game day, but don't forget to stay hydrated and drink responsibly. Thanks again for joining us, Mina.
Thanks for having me.
That was a Crown Royal water break. Moderate your drinking on game day. Stay hydrated and stay royal.
All right, it's Make Your Pick time, where we take your social questions, and I am with the wonderfully attired Tank Williams. We're in the matching Gingerfish shirts this week. Oh man, can't wait for it. It's the revenge game narrative of the year, maybe of all time. Can't wait for it. Our first question here coming to us from Caleb, and Caleb asks, needs some help. Oh yeah, I hear you. CMC keeps breaking my heart. Nyheim Hines, CeeDee Lamb, DJ Chark. He's got 2 flex spots to fill. We don't know the format. Tank, where are you leaning here?
Oh man, we have 2 to fill. Actually, like, we're rocking the Gingerfish shirts, and he actually looked pretty good against Baltimore last week. So I think he's spreading the ball around a lot. So I think I have to go CeeDee Lamb here. And then it's whether you trust Mike Glennon getting that ball to DJ Chark in a really great matchup, or Nyheim Hines going against that Oakland run defense. They've been using Jonathan Taylor a lot, man. I think I'm going to go upside. You can't play safe here. I'm going Chark. Glennon, give him the damn ball.
Yeah, I actually love that call. Mike Glennon last week took 10 deep shots. Obviously didn't connect with DJ Chark. They didn't make a lot of noise together. But as long as he's deep bombing, there's a lot of opportunity for Chark. I love that call. Okay, our next question coming to us from, I believe it's Jeff. Jeff needs 2 of 4. These are the options: Kareem Hunt, Marquise Brown, Tyler Boyd, Marvin Jones Jr. I will take this one to start us off, and for reasons that were detailed earlier, I'm not going to go Marvin Jones, not in this one. I like Kareem Hunt on volume. It's not that I expect Cleveland to put up a ton of points necessarily against Baltimore, but I'm still going to go Kareem Hunt on volume, receiving ability, some goal line ability, and I'm going to go Tyler Boyd in this matchup with Dallas. You can pretty much do whatever you need to do against Dallas, whether it's running the ball, whether it's passing the ball. It's close with Brown. I can build a case for him. I don't know, Tank, how do you feel about these?
I mean, I feel the same way. I think it's close with Brown, and you know that Cleveland secondary definitely has some deficiencies, and they've been banged up a lot. But I think I have to go against that Cowboys defense, man. They've been bad all season, so I think they keep the party going.
Our third question comes to us from Zero Kicker. I don't like that name. Well, I'm pro kicker. I'm about as pro kicker as you'll find. It's a half PPR. It needs a flex, needs 2 of these. Deontay Johnson. Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to play Deontay Johnson. He's seen double-digit targets in like his last 4 or 5 games. And then it comes down to J.K. Dobbins, Brandon Ayuk, Robbie Anderson or Jonathan Taylor. Listen, if you only need two, man, I love Dobbins this week. I've got nothing bad to say about Dobbins, but he is still in a three-headed committee. I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor. He's got a very friendly matchup this week against Vegas. We think that he's risen to the top of that backfield hierarchy, and he's catching passes too. Like, he didn't do that at Wisconsin, but they're throwing to him in the pros, and it's working. Do you disagree with any of that?
Man, I think I have to roll with you. I mean, that's the reason I was a little hesitant on Nyheim Hines. I mean, he was that guy a few weeks ago, but it seems like they're trying to get the ball in Jonathan Taylor's hands. As it gets a little colder, you want that big back to tote the rock. But at the same time, this dude has plenty of great options. I mean, Brandon Ayuk is averaging double-digit targets over the past 3 games as well, and we know Robbie Anderson went off just last week. So, I mean, I think you're just kind of throwing out all these, like, fantasy goodness positions that you have right here going into the playoffs when guys like myself are struggling right now. So, hey, big props to you. You should win, hopefully.
All right, final question comes to us from Dr. Dave. Dr. Dave is asking Melvin Gordon, Corey Davis, Miles Sanders, Jonathan Taylor needs 2. I'm glad you need 2. One of them is not going to be Miles Sanders. I wish I had better options, but I've got to play him. I actually really like Melvin Gordon this week against Carolina. It's a friendly matchup. He's been seeing most of the touches out of that backfield. I don't think that game flow is going to get away from him. He's the guy they throw to. Even if it does, even if game flow gets away, he's the guy they throw to. And then, again, I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor. It seems crazy to sit Corey Davis. He's been great, but that's what I'm doing. Tank, do you agree?
I mean, you're in the playoffs right now, so I think you want to go with the guys that have the high floors, and that's going to be your running backs. And so both of these guys have really great matchups, Melvin Gordon and Jonathan Taylor, so that's why you go with them, even though Corey Davis also has an amazing matchup against Jacksonville. But who's that number 1 dog for the Tennessee offense in the pass game? A.J. Brown, so that's why you go ahead and lean on the running backs, even though Corey Davis could ball out this week as well.
Yeah, tough call there. Great options all around. Remember, keep those questions coming on social. Use the hashtag AskFFL.
All right, Matt, it's time for our first fantasy face-off debate of the show. We are, as you guys know by now, looking at similarly ranked players and have 20 seconds to make our case. Let's kick things off at the tight end position. Eric Ebron versus Mike Gesicki. Matt, make your case for the Dolphin.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki, I feel like this is a take I've been wish casting since the preseason, but we kind of saw it come to fruition last week where I think Ryan Fitzpatrick obviously makes the team more electric from a downfield perspective, but I think Tua's the better timing, anticipatory guy over the middle, and Gesicki right now since week 11 has run 22 routes from the slot. That's second most among all tight ends. I feel like that connection is going to continue to develop. I would rely on it again here.
I like the take. I have them very close in my rankings. You're right. After the last 2 weeks, Gesicki has popped, which would have been nicer, in the middle of the season or all those weeks he got 4 catches for 40 yards. Anyway, Eric Ebron is someone who has consistently had rapport and chemistry with Ben Roethlisberger. He has now recorded 11 looks and 7 catches in back-to-back games. And if the Buffalo Bills do, Matt, what you want them to do, then Ben's going to have to keep throwing, and the matchup for Ebron is great. The Bills are giving up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Jordan Reed found the end zone against them last week, and Hunter Henry caught 7 balls in Orchard Park in week 12. So now let's look at our next pairing. It's DeAndre Swift. Remember him? He's been out for a minute, and Kareem Hunt. I actually think Hunt is the play here because, as we just heard Tank say, you're in the playoffs. Let's lean towards the floor. I'm a little bit worried about DeAndre Swift's projected touch total with Adrian Peterson looking a little vintage per usual last week. Also, AP's comments about Swift's post-concussion condition, a little bit concerning here. I do agree that Swift is the more exciting option, and Kareem Hunt is coming off of an absolutely inefficient rushing effort, but we've seen Kareem Hunt get looks in the passing game. He caught 3 for 24 last week. I think that the Browns are going to be chasing points a little bit against Baltimore, and so I think that Hunt can make up some ground that he will lose to Chubb on the ground via the air. So I like him as a floor play, but Matt, convince me to go for the ceiling.
Yeah, look, I realize it's tough with Adrian Peterson and Darrell Bevell being like best friends. They're going to continue to use Peterson for sure. But even still, anytime you can make a bet against this Green Bay Packers run defense, you got to do it. I've been saying it all year. Mike Pettin is just inviting teams to run on them. I think Swift will be fresh. He'll be healthy coming in here. And also, he's their receiving back. 3+ catches in every game but 1 this year. And the Packers have allowed the second most yards through the air to running backs. I just think there's a great ceiling. You don't want to miss out on him in his return.
I mean, I hope you're right. That will do it. More face-offs later in the show.
All right, let's make the people a little money with some player props that are available right now, courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. Why don't you get us started, Jared?
Yeah, one of the best bets I've seen, I was surprised to see it this low, was Deshaun Watson over and under 27.5 rushing yards. He's went over this number 5 of his last 6 games, and without a running back like David Johnson, he's going to need it. Akeem Hicks can stop that inside zone run, so I just feel like any chance the Texans get to run the ball will be Deshaun with his legs. I wouldn't be surprised to get over that number with one run alone. I think that they have the talent to stretch the field, and Deshaun Watson is still one of the legal dual-threat quarterbacks here, so over 27.5 is easy money for me. Go over.
Yeah, it feels like a good call. Tank, give us a lock.
Man, I'm going Derrick Henry over 106.5 yards, rushing yards, against those Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I know 2020 has been a long-ass year, but if you recall, like, he stiff-armed Josh Norman into IR, and that's when he was King Henry. But about a year or so ago, when he was just Derrick Henry, he stiff-armed the whole Jacksonville defense on his way to a 99-yard touchdown. The Titans are coming off a beatdown against the Browns. That Jacksonville defense gives up the 3rd most rush yards, 136.9 per game, and the Titans are pissed off. Derrick Henry actually fumbled early in that game, contributing to them getting down a lot. So expect him to come out running hard and nasty in this one. Easy over.
All right, every week I file my recap column on Sunday night, and of course, as always, shout out to all of the lunatics who read the 5 things I care about and the 5 things I do not care about from the given Sunday slate. Now, let's talk about something I don't care about heading into this week's game. And look, shout out to all my Star Wars fans, because we got some good news out of the franchise this week. A lot of upcoming exciting projects, and it leads me to a quote here uttered by our emotive king from one of the recent films, Kylo Ren. Kill the past. Let it die. Let the past die. Kill it if you have to. I messed up the quote, but I'm not going to mess up this analysis, because we are going to kill the past. We no longer care about the past when it comes to Jonathan Taylor. We are riding this guy as a clear-cut starter. We're not going to ask any more start-sit questions about Jonathan Taylor, because everything is lining up for him to become the player that we drafted him to be this offseason. Now, this Colts rookie running back, his 2 best games have come in his last 2 contests. Of course, he's got a stint on the COVID list sandwiched between them, but didn't hold him back at all last week. 135 total yards against the Texans, and obviously we know against the Packers in week 11, he crushed them too. Now, of course, people will cry, but the matchups. Fair point. We know that those 2 teams are not good run defenses, but you know, it's not like the matchups are getting any harder here. This week, he has the Raiders, who rank 31st in run defense DVOA. And oh, by the way, you know, they're going to play those Texans once again in week 15. And things are looking up for Taylor even beyond the matchups. If you watch the last couple of games, you see him running more decisively. You see the vision there. He's getting left tackle Anthony Costanzo back. So we are indeed going to kill the past. You're going to forgive Jonathan Taylor for the slow start. I get it. It was frustrating. So many things were lined up well for him after Marlon Mack's injury, and it just didn't happen. But you know what? We're letting that go. We're letting that die, because the Colts need Jonathan Taylor too. With Rivers banged up, needing an off-season surgery, and them still pushing for an AFC playoff spot, he's no longer a luxury. He's a necessity at this point for the team to hit, and I think he will hit the rest of the way. Now, it's time for another break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, we're going to check on what's trending, all of your most burning questions, but also Judge Andy Behrens is going to make the ever-annual needed rule on what team etiquette should be when you've been eliminated from the playoffs. That's very, very important. We always got to talk about that, so don't go away.
And we're back here on season 15 of FFL. All right, let's check in on who's trending this morning. We've got James Conner, people want to know about for good reason, obviously coming off that COVID list after missing a couple of games. DeAndre Washington, who has a big opportunity. Kiki Cutie, who has a big opportunity. Duke Johnson, who has had this opportunity and failed to surprise or impress, and J.D. McKissick, who also has a big opportunity. All right, let's start with James Conner. Matt, obviously, the Steelers had trouble running the ball before Benny Snell made the situation worse, and Conner wasn't available, though he did have some luck, the last time we saw him against Jacksonville, though. I don't know how much confidence we have in Conner, especially coming off of the layoff. We've seen other players struggle a little bit with some rust coming off of the COVID IR list. Where are you thinking about James Conner, or how are you thinking about him, especially in such a pivotal week?
Yeah, confidence is definitely not the word that I would use when it comes to James Conner. Mina and Tank talked about it earlier. Like, Mina's deep ball takes on Ben have been completely vindicated of late. Like, this offense is way too easy to defend. We know the offensive line is not playing very well. That's a big part of why they're not running the ball. Like, people want them to run the ball more. Give me a break. They can't do it. They can't push in short yardage situations. That's problematic. Ben can't throw the ball down the field. Everything is short over the middle. It's why the receivers are dropping passes, because it comes on them too quickly. This offense right now, I just don't have a lot of faith in them hitting much of a ceiling. That comes down to Conner, to Ben, to the receivers. Everything is just way too constricted to the short area of the field. If you have other options with better paths to ceilings, I would play them over James Conner, but I understand with the running back landscape, he's still probably a top 20 guy this week.
And you have to imagine he is going to see some volume, especially after the other two backs struggled last week. Although Conner is only seeing like 2, maybe 3 catches per game, so not the highest floor, not the highest ceiling. Obviously, I agree with you there. Tank, let's talk about Kiki Cutie, because Matt obviously went off earlier in excitement. You've got no Brandon Cooks, so expectation is that you'd see a volume boost for Cutie, who's coming off of an 8-catch, 140-plus yard effort last week, but also, not only is the Bears defense packing it up, but they are also banged up. No Buster Screen in this one. So when you would think if Brandon Cooks is available, then the more defensive attention on Cutie, and is he a good enough player? Well, there's no cornerbacks really to do much here. So how are you ranking Cutie in this week?
I'm up there with Harmon. I think people thought I was crazy, and I honestly thought I was crazy last week when I was saying start Kiki Cutie over Ezekiel Elliott last week, and I'm pretty sure he outscored Zeke last week. And so this is another great matchup where you look at that Bears defense and expect them to be super tough, but at the same time, they gave up 34 points to the Lions last week. Everyone knows they're going to throw the ball to Marvin Jones, and he still got off, and so I don't see why Kiki can't do the same thing. Obviously, he has a really good rapport with Deshaun Watson. We didn't know exactly how that Houston Texans offense was going to be able to operate with Will Fuller no longer there, but at the same time, going against a really tough Colts defense, they show that they can still move the ball. Now, will it hurt them not having Cooks as well? Yes, it will, but at the same time, that means there's going to be more volume going to Kiki, so even though he's going to have more eyes zeroed in on him, he should be able to have a decent floor because he's one of the Texans' only options in that offensive scheme.
Do you think, Tank, let's stay on the Texans for a second. Do you think, obviously one of these other players trending is Duke Johnson because David Johnson is on the COVID list now. We haven't seen Duke really pop in replacement or substitution of David Johnson earlier in the season. But now that we have Cooks and no Will Fuller, and we know that Duke is a good pass-catching running back, despite the fact that maybe he's being underutilized in that part of his skill set, which seems crazy, but whatever. I'm not an NFL coach. Do you think Duke Johnson gets any elevation, or are you just kind of done with the situation?
Well, I can answer real quickly, and then I'll let Matt go into it. I think that his pass game usage does get elevated in this situation where you're missing Brandon Cooks, who's also a guy who can operate out of the slot. So if you look at it from this perspective, everyone's going to be focused on Kiki Cutie in the slot, and so then you either motion Duke out the backfield or just run routes with him out the backfield, and that provides another option. And we were kind of looking for it last week. It really didn't materialize, but Jordan Akins in that tight end position, he should be another guy that Deshaun Watson leans on in a decent matchup against that Bears secondary.
Matt, do you have anything else to add on Duke Johnson?
Nope. Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't be playing Duke Johnson.
No, thank you. Maybe a couple more looks, but I'm with you on that one, Harmon. All right. We'll continue to keep an eye on the social conversation, so please keep sending your questions, and we'll get to more soon.
All right, this court has overcome some minor technical issues, and we are back in session. I didn't hear from just one person this week. I don't have just like a single individual bringing a case. We have a class action suit here. I heard from a lot of people regarding the behavior of eliminated teams during the fantasy playoffs. We need to talk about this. I'm seeing plenty of examples, and we can scroll through them, of eliminated teams who are just flat out dropping stars, or who are making waiver ads, again, when they're in the consolation bracket, nothing to play for. Here's the thing, guys, and I get it. If you're in a dynasty league, or you're in some sort of league in which there are incentives for not finishing in last place, maybe your draft order is tied to it, maybe there are financial incentives, anything like that, I get it. Go ahead, play the season out, make your claims, do all that nonsense. But if you are just like a ghost team rattling around that doesn't know it's dead, you've got to stop. You've got to stop making claims. You've got to stop being disruptive. Don't be petty. Let's just let the winners bracket play it out. Commissioners, I got a couple of notes for you. If you have any of this nonsense going on in your fantasy leagues, number one, if somebody is dropping stars, if somebody dropped like Lamar Jackson, one of these other stars that are mentioned in any of these tweets, listen, you got to put that player back on the roster, and then you've got to lock the owner who did it. That is way out of bounds. Locking teams, totally fine this time of year if you have to do it. Another thing you can do, you can set fab budgets down to 0 for teams that have already been eliminated from the fantasy postseason. That way, they can't interfere even if they're tempted to. But, man, again, if somebody's dropping players, they need to just be maybe not even invited next year. Commissioners, go ahead and take action on these. The rest of you guys, if you're eliminated, look, waivers are for the winners bracket only. Please stay out of the way.
All right, let's jump to our next over-under here. And if you watch the top of the show, you know I'm personally invested in this next one. And it's Josh Allen. We're going to set the line here at 2.5 touchdowns. That is the combined touchdowns, okay? So rushing, passing, it's all part of the equation here. You know that with Josh Allen. And I don't care about the Steelers defense. I'm going over on this one. And the biggest reason is that we're starting to see some cracks in this Steelers defense. Number one, we know Bud Dupree, their star pass rusher across from TJ Watt, he's out of the mix. Robert Spillane, the guy who was replacing Devin Bush as the coverage linebacker, he's gone. Vince Williams on the COVID list. And that's why Logan Thomas, J.D. McKissick, those guys were running free over the middle of the field last time we saw the Steelers. I think that's going to be the case with Josh Allen. The Cole Beasley connection is alive and well. And really all year you've been able to pick on the Steelers over the middle. 6th most yards allowed to slot receivers on the season. So I am clearly going over. And I know Tank is a handsome and smart man. You obviously agree with me. Please tell me why.
Absolutely not. You know I'm going under. That's why you try to set me up with a banana in the tailpipe. And you have to also look what you're doing too, Harmon. You are like emotionally invested in the Josh Allen, so you're trying to see things that really aren't happening. Like the Steelers defense is tough against quarterbacks and really tough against fantasy quarterbacks. Josh Allen has only gone over this number in 2 out of the last 8 games. And look at it, Pittsburgh's defense held Tannehill, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson under this number. I don't think they'll have any problem holding Josh Allen under this number, especially coming off a tough loss, upset against Washington. I'm definitely going under on this one.
Okay, number one, how dare you try to say this is an emotional argument? It's clearly a very logical argument. Liz, save me here, please. Tell me we're going over on this one.
You know, I'm just going to set it up this way. So on Friday, I opened a gorgeous bottle of GSM. I let that baby aerate. It was gorgeous. I drank a little bit too quickly, and I fired off a hot Star Wars take. It was well conceived, but my mentions cannot take any more. So I'm not going to mess with an anti-Josh Allen take. Thank you, Andy Behrens, for teaching me that lesson. I will take the over on this one. Matt Harmon mentioned all of the injuries to the Steelers. He missed one. Joe Hayden, here's how it's going to go. Stephon Diggs is finding the end zone. You got Dawson Dawson Knox, there's a sleeper take for you finding the end zone because of the tight end deficiencies and the linebacking issues that the Steelers are dealing with. And then you're also going to see Josh Allen run one in. No, I didn't stutter. Lamar Jackson ran for over 65 yards against the Steelers. So did RG3. RG3 managed 68 rushing yards against this defense. I'll take the over, and a wonderful Twitter feed. Thank you. Oh, I guess I'm up next. Time for fantasy freebies. These are players who are under 25% started in Yahoo leagues and could be big contributors for fantasy managers in week 14. Andy, are you back? Tell us who you're looking at.
Kind of back. I'm sort of back. I'm a little bit back. Give me Dalton Schultz. Maybe that's a tough name to pull the trigger on in the fantasy postseason, but I'm doing it. He's facing the Bengals this week. The Bengals have allowed the second most fantasy points to opposing tight ends, and it's not exactly some murderer's row of tight ends that have gotten to him. Schultz is going to be a very strong play this week. Over his last 5 games, he's seen 30 targets. We saw him find the end zone in that Minnesota game. I think he can do it again. I think he's a great start here. He is widely available in Yahoo leagues as well.
All right, Tank, you're up next. Talk to me about a quarterback, an aged quarterback on your list.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to seem like y'all have me on repeat because it seems like I keep throwing out Phillip Rivers, but he's the gift that keeps on giving. Like, the dude has averaged close to 20 points per game over the past 3 games. Ever since I tried to prematurely retire T.Y. Hilton, dude's been balling out the past couple of weeks. He still has a young stud in Michael Pittman, and that Las Vegas Raiders defense is giving up the 10th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So if you get me Philly in this situation where they're vying for a playoff spot, I definitely think he balls out today.
I like the take. I'm going to talk about a receiver in Denver. It is Tim Patrick. Now, I understand that relying on Drew Lock is an exhausting proposition and challenge, and yet Tim Patrick keeps rising to it. Since week 6, Patrick has averaged over 66 yards per game and found the end zone 3 times. He's posted fantasy relevant stat lines in 5 of his last 6 contests. The Carolina Panthers have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing receivers in 2 of their last 3 games. Don't count out Patrick just yet. I like him a lot in this one. Now let's toss to Jared for his mad bets for week 14.
Yeah. Look, you might not be in your fantasy championship or playoffs. You might have lost that money, but there's still time to collect some coin. Mad bets, I got some of the best bets for you this week. I love the Colts -3 against the Raiders here. I think defense wins games. They both have decent offenses, but the Colts defense is a problem. I think their run stop defense is one of the best in the league, which would eliminate Josh Jacobs from really having the monster game that he normally does. It puts a lot of pressure on Derek Carr to keep up with the Colts scoring. And I think the Raiders defense, on the other hand, just isn't as good as I would like it to be here. So I think the Colts can win this one by 3 and more easily. My next best bet is a little bit personal for me because I have another bet with a coworker that the Steelers are overrated, all right? Steelers will return to the media, and they're not an undefeated for the season team. And that's why I'm going to Bills here at home. I think the Steelers are injured. I love Josh Allen's ability to stretch the field. You add that in with the fact that they actually are playing some decent defense here. And Big Ben's just throwing the ball too much. They haven't failed to neutralize the run game. So give me the Bills -2. I think they win by a field goal, if not more. And in my last bet, I'm biased, so I'm not going to just tell you the Ravens are going to win, even though the Ravens are going to win. But the Ravens versus the Browns on Monday night, I got to go under 47.5 here. Both these teams are going to run the ball. They're going to try to play their best defense. But let's be honest, the Browns just aren't going to score enough points to go over this 47.5. So if you're trying to make some money, follow these bets for me. If you got your own, go on BetMGM and do what you do. But if you like betting, please watch me, Matt Gothard, my friend Minty Bets. She'll be back on Mad Bets on Yahoo Sportsbook. Thank you.
All right, let's jump into the chat room. Liz, I appreciate you hanging out with me here for this part of it because there's a lot of needy people. I'm seeing a lot of repeat questions, a lot of good emojis, though. So hit me with your good emojis. Hit me with your good questions. We're going to take these questions from the chat right now. Ryan Croft from Facebook. And I'm interested in your answer on this one, Liz, like legitimately.
Oh, okay.
So let's hear it. We've got a pretzel here, we've got a puking emoji, we've got an angry emoji, and a masked up emoji. We appreciate that. All right, this guy needs 2 here. Antonio Brown, his cousin Hollywood Brown, J.D. McKissick, or C.D. Lamb. This is a half-point PPR, so that might move the needle a little bit here. I'm most curious though, Liz. 2 touchdowns in back-to-back games for Marquise Brown. Is this the start of something new, or am I just destined to get let down if I believe in this connection here?
I mean, I think the answer can be both. Yes, you are probably going to be let down. I don't know if you're going to be let down this week in a must-win. I mean, I know, don't at me about this must-win. Every game's a must-win, blah, 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 but there are obvious postseason implications to the Monday night game between Baltimore and Cleveland. And Tank mentioned it earlier, the deficiencies in the Browns secondary, I think, would mean, especially also when you think about the fact that they're a pretty good run defense, would mean good things for Hollywood Browns. So if you're looking for the moonshot, I'd take that. And if you want the floor option in a half-point PPR league, maybe you roll with McKissick as the other option.
I like the way that balances itself out there. And yeah, it feels like 100 years ago, but don't forget that Marquise Brown did put up 101 yards in the opener against this Browns defense way back when. God, I remember feeling so enthusiastic about Brown after that game. But let's move on. Let's move on here. Jeff Davis sends us very 'tis the season type of emojis here with a Christmas tree with the cold face and trophies because it's fantasy football playoffs trophy season. He says, don't let me down. Well, we're trying, Jeff. Give me a break. He needs to decide between Josh Allen and Justin Herbert at quarterback, and then at the flex spot, he's picking between two beautiful options here in Brashad Perryman or Russell Gage. Let's take the QB one first, Liz. I think even despite the fact he's playing the Steelers, and despite Tank thinks I'm just wish casting here, I think I'm still going Josh Allen over Justin Herbert. And whenever you can trust Brashad Perryman in the Jets pass game, I feel like you got to do it.
Well, you're also, hold on a second on Perryman. And when we're looking at the quarterbacks, I think that obviously it's the matchup that's tilting, right? Like, how do I not start Herbert against the Falcons? But this is a situation where I'm going to lean to something you preach, which is how much can you tolerate? Josh Allen will put up points. We know that this is going to be a back and forth. So I would take Josh Allen as the quarterback as well. I'm a little bit more worried about Brashad Perryman. I know obviously with Mims out, the target volume should be there, and I hyped Perryman. I like his skill set a lot as a downfield option, but this is a Jamal Adams revenge game. And even though he's a safety, I believe he's being used on a quarter of his snaps as a pure pass rusher. He is out for blood. That dude is not a wallflower. I think even though Sam Darnold doesn't deserve the hurt, it might be displaced on him from Adams, who wants to make a big show against his former team. And that's not going to give Sam Darnold the time necessary to plant his feet and find Perryman. So I might take Gage, especially with the other injuries, including obviously Julio Jones, to the receiving core in Atlanta.
Yeah, tough scene. Come on, Jamal. Take it easy on your pal Sam, all right? He does not deserve your wrath, but I get it. I totally understand that logic. Let's take one more here from Twitter. This comes in from Tim Haddon, Miles Sanders, who I'm out on, DeAndre Swift, who I'm in on, and Mike Davis, who I'm like, kinda in on, but I can't really decide. Let's help Tim decide in a full PPR. Thank you for the cowboy emoji and the tooth emoji. Don't know what the tooth is doing in there. A little bit random. I'm gonna give you credit for randomness, Tim. Pick one of these three, Liz. Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift, and Mike Davis in a full PPR.
I think the answer for me is Davis. No DJ Moore in this one. We've seen Davis be utilized in the passing game quite a lot. CMC is not there. So I think with the targets he'll absorb from Moore's absence, which, by the way, that was a pretty large target share that Moore was drawing. If some of that goes Davis's way, he could produce enough. So I think he is the safest because we don't know how much we're going to see DeAndre Swift, even though we feel like we should see him a lot more. And I also am out on Miles Sanders. So that's a pick I would make.
Yeah, Davis and Swift is really close. Just think there's a better ceiling with Swift. So, hopefully you don't knock your tooth out or come over to my house and punch my tooth out when I tell you to start DeAndre Swift and he lets you down. Now it's time for another break here on Fantasy Football.
By the way.
Yes. Yeah, right. That's a good point. Now let's enough of this teeth knocking out stuff. I'm trying to keep all of mine. I'm not trying to get a filling or whatever. Anyways, we're taking another break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, all of you J.K. Dobbins managers are feeling real good. 70-plus touchdowns or 70-plus yards and a touchdown in these back-to-back games. But is that going to happen again? Tough to say. We'll debate it right after this.
All right, final set of over-unders. We're going to talk J.K. Dobbins. He's pretty good. He's been pretty good over the last couple games. Simple line for J.K. It's 79.5 total yards. Give me the over on this one. He's over 70 yards in his last couple games. He's been leading that Baltimore backfield in snaps. He's led in yardage over the last couple games as well. You look at Cleveland. Cleveland has given up this total or greater to 7 different running backs so far this season. So I think that Dobbins is going to become the 8th. I think he's a great play this week. Give me the over. Jared, are you taking the over on this one?
Oh, yeah, call me biased because I definitely am. I'm a Ravens fan now, Ravens flock. And I'm taking the over on all the Ravens, all right? They're getting good at football right now. They're playing their best ball. Dobbins, there's a reason why we draft him. We want this guy at this point in the season to start getting 100-yard games. So 79 yards is just too low for me. I'm going over that easily.
Matt, come on. Let's have a sweep.
You know, usually I feel like I always take overs. I'm a very positive person. Everyone says that about me. But I'm going under on this one because when I can make a bet on predictability in the Ravens backfield, I'm going to bet against it. All right? Look, I know you said, Andy, that he leads the team in snaps. We're still talking about 21 snaps last week. That's a thin margin for error. I do not think the Ravens are going to be able to run the ball like they did against Dallas last week, okay? That was an outlier that has a lot more to do with Dallas's defense and just straight up being soft more so than it says about the current state of the Ravens offense. I'm going to go under on this one. I feel like it's just too much of a rotation with all of these guys. Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, they're not going away.
Boo.
Matt Harmon, like a coward, taking the under in the fantasy playoffs. It's unbelievable to me, like an absolute coward. All right, let's send it to our baller on a budget, Tank Williams. Let the record show that Tank came in 6th place in the DFS contest. In a what have you done?
Hey, it's not about who wins the battles, who wins the war, but what it do, baby? It's your boy T Money with my Week 14 value plays, and you know what it is. I'm starting off with Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback for $22. You know the drill. Plug him into your lineup. Don't watch the game and just look at the results at the end because this game has a little something extra to it. Like all Mitch has to do, he hears it on a weekly basis. Man, how did the Bears pass on Mahomes, Deshaun Watson before you? Now he gets to face off against Deshaun Watson. And that Houston defense gives up the 12th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. And so, hey, at least for 1 week, Mitchell will get his shine on and show that he's the better quarterback, even though I think the Texans still win this one. Now, at running back, I'm going with my man Peyton Barber for $10 going against the San Francisco 49ers. And this is simple. Like, does he have a really good matchup? No. But if Antonio Gibson is out, he gets the brunt of the carries. We know J.D. McKissick is the pass-catching back. If there's going to be goal line carries, he's going to get it. But the reason I like him is if there's a stud that you want to put in at running back or at wide receiver or maybe even quarterback, this is an easy $10 that you slide in, and there's a high probability that he just falls into the end zone, and you get all that upside in other places in your lineup. So that's why Peyton Barber could be a good spot here in your lineup. Now, at wide receiver, same game, different name. I'm going Brandon Ayuk for $14. Like, this dude has a touchdown in each of the last 3 games. Over 90 yards receiving in each of the last 3 games. And somehow, some way, this dude is only $14. I don't get it. I think it's a glitch in the matrix. And if I see a glitch in the matrix, you better be sure I'm going to press that thing. And that's why Ayuk is definitely in my lineup this week. And that tight end, I'm going with Hayden Hurst against the Chargers for $12 because no Julio. Damn. But guess what? We have a remedy. That man, Hayden Hurst, is going against a defense that gives up the 9th most fantasy points to tight ends. And now I understand that Matty Ice is a little ice cold in the red zone. Shout out to Young Wei Koo. But I feel that Hayden Hurst, hey, if he's going to get in the end zone and in the game without Julio playing, it got to be this one. So remember, ladies and gentlemen, the T is for the money, and the money is something that you will not have in your wallet or your pocket if you don't put these guys in your lineup. So now, producer Dan, go ahead and go to that beautiful DFS footage. And like Andy said, I came in last week, but doesn't matter now because look at that lead I got. Ain't nobody catching me.
And I'm surging. You guys don't see it yet, but I'm making up a lot of ground here.
Cut his feet.
Oh, that's what we call it?
All right. Any more crosstalk? Are we good? Are we good? Matt, twinsies, do you guys have any more beef to settle?
Is Matt frozen?
I'm just trying to reach Matt.
I thought Matt was frozen. Oh. That's just that second to last look he had on his face. Okay.
All right. There is still time to get in on the action in the Yahoo Cup BetMGM Daily Contest. Enter every week for a chance at $75,000 in total prizes, and the top 25 lineups each week will be entered in the Yahoo Cup BetMGM Final, where you could win free rooms from MGM Resorts or a $20,000 Vegas getaway. Head to yahoo.com/dailyfantasy to join.
Welcome to Fantasy Community. We are excited to be joined by Renee Miller. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Renee is a writer at The Athletic. She is a writer for Roto World. She is a Fantasy Sports Writers Association award winner. That's probably her best credential, if we're being honest. But she is also the director of the undergraduate neuroscience program at the University of Rochester. Ho-hum, it's kind of impressive. You can find her on Twitter at Renee Miller01. Renee, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
You wrote a piece on 10 different improvements that we can make to fantasy football scoring. So why don't you just tell us about a few of your favorites?
Oh, yeah, I had fun with this one. The one that I'm probably most committed to is the quarterback interception deduction. So a quarterback throws an interception, but it was tipped or bobbled by a receiver who should have caught it, and really isn't the quarterback's fault. So I proposed a scaled scoring where, if the quarterback throws a pass that's tipped by the defensive lineman, that's kind of on him. But if it's on the receiver, that's not the quarterback's fault necessarily. So eliminating that and accrediting the person responsible for the interception was one. Oh, pass interference is another one that's so frustrating as a fantasy receiver owner. Maybe the receiver should get a little bit of points.
Honestly, I love that one because I feel like there is a tendency of great receivers to actually draw pass interference penalties, right? I feel like Julio Jones has had some seasons where he draws just field flipping PI penalties, but those yards just go away. They're not part of our game.
Nope. A lot of them related to defensive scoring. So defenses can be pretty frustrating. Why don't defenses get points for doing things that are actually great? Stopping a fourth down conversion or stopping a touchdown from inside the 5. Those are huge defensive plays. There's lots of ways to tweak defensive scoring that would make it a lot more fun and balance out they allowed 30 points, so your defense is going to score nothing.
Yeah, I love the idea of fourth down stops. There's a ton of defensive scoring options available in our game that almost no one takes advantage of. So defensive scoring just comes down to which defense is going to score a pretty random touchdown this week, which is not what we want it to be.
Right. First downs, points for first downs. I know some leagues like Scott Fishbowl does points for first down, which is good. I think PPR should only count if the pass is caught for positive yardage. None of these caught a pass for -5 yards should not be a plus fantasy play.
People are going to think that I set you up for this, but you were saying unprompted. I did not. I think I have a well-deserved reputation as a PPR hater, and that is exactly why.
Yeah. I love PPR, but that aspect of it is...
It's horrible. A single catch for no gain is not worth the same in real life as a 10-yard run. It is a ridiculous equivalency that we've set up.
Yeah.
Well, it is because you agree with me on that essential point. This has been a joy to talk to you. Tell people once again where they can read your work, what you've got coming up, and where they can find you on social platforms.
Sure. I write daily fantasy sports for football and professional basketball at Roto World, and I write a weekly column called Brain Games on The Athletic. And you can find me on Twitter at Renee Miller01.
Thanks, Renee. Awesome talking to you.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, and we are back here on Fantasy Football Live with 7 early games getting ready to kick off here at the top of the hour. Let's take a look at our own feeds and see what folks want to know. All right, Andy, tell me, who's asking you what?
Yeah, I've got 3 straight questions stacked up here, all people asking about Kiki Cutie. Tommy's asking, Tashi's asking, Dwayne is asking. I'm just going to take the L on Kiki from last week and say that I was entirely wrong. They are not distributing Will Fuller's targets across the entire receiving corps. Apparently, they're all going to Kiki because he saw 9 targets last week and was great. Now we've got no Brandon Cooks. We've got no Will Fuller. We've got no David Johnson. A lot of this target volume is going to fall onto Kiki. I think he's in for a huge day. You might be intimidated by the matchup with the Bears defense, but the wheels have come. Matt was talking about it earlier. The wheels have basically come off for the Bears defense. They've given up 75 points over their last 2 games. I would expect Cutie to have a great day, and he's going to be my recommended start to pretty much everybody asking about him.
All right, across the board, green lighting Kiki Cutie. Matt, what kind of emojis are you getting in your DMs here?
No emojis in the DMs, folks. If you're going to approach me on Instagram, let's be respectful. @MattHarmon_BYB. No emojis there, but I will take some good questions. Like, I've been getting a lot of Kyler Murray questions in the DMs this morning, and I get it. Andy talked about it. He's definitely an off-his-game player because he's been a little off his game. This entire offense has been off their game. And yikes, what a tough scene it is for Cliff Kingsbury right now. But, again, Liz, you said this, and this is something I tell myself pretty much every day when it comes to every aspect in life, but especially in fantasy football, it's what can you stomach? It's what can you live with? So for the folks that are like, do I play Kyler Murray or Taysom Hill? I'm probably still going to go with Kyler Murray there. For the folks that are like, well, do I play Kyler Murray or Ryan Tannehill? I'm probably going to go Tannehill there because I can stomach sitting Murray down for a guy on a great offense that's played well all year in Ryan Tannehill. I still, look, I mean, you all know I tirelessly work on my rankings like a real fantasy professional. I've got Murray still like QB9. So there's plenty of players I would play ahead of him, but unlikely that most of them are just freely available on the waiver wire or on your roster. So what can you stomach? What can you live with? That's the question you got to ask with Murray.
All right, so Andy was getting a lot of questions about Kiki Cutie. Matt's getting questions about Kyler Murray. I, unsurprisingly, am getting a lot of peach season questions. I'm going to get to mine. This one I wanted to profile from Pawn Play. That's Tim Hill on Instagram. I am at LizLoza_FF on Instagram. This question is Dallas Goedert, obviously versus New Orleans with a kind of new quarterback, even though we saw him for a tiny bit last week, or Schultz versus Cincinnati. I am going to say here, I'm going to go with Dalton Schultz in this one. Cincinnati has allowed top 4 fantasy finishes to the tight end position for 2 straight weeks. You got Gesicki going ham for 88 yards. You got Evan Ingram doing some damage. I like Dalton Schultz here. I know that the knee-jerk reaction is to always play Goddard because of what we've seen over the season, but I don't know who Hurts is going to look at. Maybe he'll like Rager more. We don't know what Doug Peterson is. Doug Peterson going to purposely tank him out of some sort of ego tilt? Maybe. Is Zach Ertz going to see more this week? I don't know. I would rather not mess with Goddard. Also, it's just not fun to root for, and I don't mind rooting for Schultz to do a little something. He's been consistent 4 to 5 catches every week, so that's where I'm going to go. Tank, what about you? What kind of questions are you getting?
I have a simple one. It's from Bubba Kemple on Twitter asking if he should go Cousins or Tannehill. And I think, Harmon already talked about all the reasons why you should play Tannehill. I mean, that Jacksonville Jaguars defense is giving up the 4th most points to fantasy quarterbacks. And even though Kirk Cousins has showed us that he can win you a game and get you to the playoffs, especially with that performance he had last week, he's going up against a little bit tougher matchup with that Bucks defense. And with the Bucks losing 3 out of the last 4 games, I think they're going to be energized to get back on track for that playoff run. And so it'll be tough sledding for Kirk Cousins. I like Tannehill over him in this matchup.
Finally, Jared, why don't you close this segment out for us and tell us what people want to know from you?
Yes, betting, man. A lot of people are loving this Chiefs -7, trying to get confirmation on it. I don't like it at all. I think the Dolphins' defense is really, really good, especially their pass defense with Howard and Jones. And even though the Cheetahs, the Beast, and Kelsey is good, if there's one pass defense that can slow down Mahomes, Pat Mahomes is going to be amazing. Put him in your fantasy leagues. By all means, he's got you to this far. But I just think that in the betting world, Chiefs -7 on the road is just a little bit too much for my taste, even if it is against the Dolphins.
All right, well, there you have it. Please keep those tweets coming in. Again, our very own Scott Pianowski is still answering questions. It is God's work that he is doing at the hashtag AskFFL all the way up until kickoff.
All right, it's fantasy face-off time, and we are going to find out which of us, myself or Tank, is the true believer in Andy Dalton and fully invested in the Dallas offense. But we're going to start with a pair of receivers, and these are two good ones, very similarly ranked. For me, it's going to be Amari Cooper, but Tank, for you, it's Corey Davis.
Man, Corey Davis, he's a top 5 wide receiver, fantasy wide receiver in the last 3 weeks. Has a really good matchup going against that Jacksonville secondary that gives up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers. And I really like the Titans coming in, motivating, needed a win after that beatdown that they suffered at home against the Cleveland Browns. So that's why I expect Corey Davis, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, all these guys the ball out there in Jacksonville today.
Yeah, really hard to argue against any element of Tennessee's offense, but I'm going to go with Amari Cooper in the mother of all revenge games for Andy Dalton. I can't wait for it. Cooper, in his last 3, has a couple of touchdown receptions, over 230 receiving yards. He's averaging 8 targets per week. I mean, he's the alpha in that Dallas receiving corps, and he's facing a Cincinnati defense that ranks 25th against the pass. This is extremely friendly. They give up 2 passing scores per week. Give me Amari Cooper in this one for sure. I think he's a solid wide receiver 1. Let's talk about the quarterbacks here, and one of us is faithful to his attire. One of us is faithful to the shirt that he is wearing. I'm going to start us off and tell you why you need to start Andy Dalton this week. And okay, if you have a stellar option, you can go ahead and sit Andy Dalton, but come on, this is a fun one. It's against Cincinnati. He's returning home. Listen, Cincinnati, again, 25th against the pass. They give up 257 passing yards per week. This is not a defense that should stress anyone. They're giving up 2 passing touchdowns per week. I love this spot for Dalton. He's got plenty of weapons. But Tank, tell us why. I don't see you wearing a Derek Carr shirt this week. Why should we be starting Derek Carr?
I'm going to tell you a little story, and I'm not going to get into Derek Carr because I don't want to jinx him. I told you earlier I need him to ball out. But the reason for these shirts is whenever you play fantasy football, especially with Andy Dalton, he'll have this amazing matchup, and you're like, there's no way that he can fail. He's definitely going to provide the points I need to win this game, whether it's in the playoffs or leading to the playoffs. And oh, what you know, that ginger fist comes in that timely manner and screws up your fantasy lineup, screws up your playoff dreams, hopes, aspirations, and that's why we call Andy Dalton the ginger fist, and it's definitely going to happen today in his return to Cincy. Just wait for it. I got my popcorn ready.
Oh, this is outrageous. When has Andy Dalton ever let you down? It's literally never happened. Fine.
Liz, it is time to answer the people's questions. Make your pick, your flex questions from social media. You got some good ones. Let's get started with Doug here. Needs 2 from this crop of players that we definitely did not think we'd be starting at the beginning of the season, but here we are. Needs 2 from J.D. McKissick, Cole Beasley, T.Y. Hilton, or Tim Patrick. I know you hyped up Tim Patrick earlier, and I know that the goofballs that were just on the screen there, Tank and Andy, have talked about Andy Dalton's revenge game about 35 times in this program. Are we not also talking about the Alex Smith revenge game? J.D. McKissick, his top target? I'm not getting that excited about it. I actually think Cole Beasley and J.D. McKissick are the 2 top options here. But Liz, what do you think?
No, I'm in lockstep. I mean, that's no Antonio Gibson we've talked about, and then Cole Beasley, right? It's real hard to sit after last week and also recognizing the deficiencies in the Steelers' defense. So I'm in agreement with you on those 2.
Perfect. Yeah, I think those are both very strong plays, easy paths to volume. Let's go to the next one here. John in tweet number 2 says, Standard League needs 2. J.K. Dobbins, Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, or Josh Jacobs if he plays. Good news for you, John. He is playing. A lot of quality options here to pick from, Liz. Which direction are you going?
You know, this is a tough one. So Andy mentioned it earlier in the show, high on Melvin Gordon because I like when he is being used. I like his usage period. If Denver falls behind, we know he has passing game value. So to me, Melvin Gordon is an obvious start. Now the question is, do I go with Josh Jacobs, who I know is banged up but is an absolute stud, who has played at less than 100% throughout the season, or do I roll with J.K. Dobbins on this Monday night effort? And obviously he has popped recently. I think I'm going to lean towards Josh Jacobs because I like the talent. And also, let's remember, Cleveland did kind of quiet Derrick Henry the last time we saw him. So I think I'm going to lean towards Josh Jacobs here.
We are once again in lockstep. I think you can count on a lot more volume from Jacobs, where if you have J.K. Dobbins, you're like, whew, I got so lucky. I got 15 touches in this game. Woo, that's not what you're looking for. Now, let's move on to our last one here. This one comes in from Jason, and they've got to start 2 out of this group. Duke Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, T. Higgins, and Kiki Qt. One of these things doesn't look like the other. Only one of these guys did you draft in the 4th round like a goober, and that was Juju Smith-Schuster. I do think he's the guy I'm going to pick here, though. It's a good matchup against the Bills. They've given up a decent amount of production to slot receivers. Juju is still converting on most of his looks, but obviously the other guy you've got to lock in here is Kiki. Said it all show. We're going to say it one more time. Play this guy this week. Liz, do you have any disagreement there? I know you're a big T. Higgins fan. Are you slotting him in over Juju?
Oh, no, not this week. I actually think we haven't talked about him. I think Tyler Boyd might be a sneaky play this week, but he's not in this question. I like Kiki Cutie, and also you make the point about Juju Smith-Schuster. He's caught 7 catches in 3 of his last 4 from a points per reception angle. Obviously, that's the play, so I like Juju and Kiki as well. Juju and Kiki, that sounds like a dance team.
Yeah, it's a real festive sound. I love that. Yeah, maybe a dance team, a boy band, something like that. All right, well, that's all your questions. Liz, take it for some fantasy damage here.
Oh, that's up next. Okay, great. So let's get to some last-minute sleepers who could do some fantasy damage. And you know what? I want to keep the 2020 tilt alive with Mike Glennon. Didn't stutter. Actually like it. Listen. Do I think that Mike Glennon is a perfect passer? Nah, I'm a Bears fan. I know what the real is. He is prone to mistakes, but will he make that money, well, he is going to make some money, by the way, but will he make that many against the Titans, whose pass rush is kaput? I don't think so. I don't think he's going to get pressured. Listen, Tennessee is generating the 2nd fewest sacks, just 14 on the season, and now they're without Jadeveon Clowney. That should give Mike Glennon here plenty of time to operate. He's averaged 250 passing yards and scored 3 times over his last 2 games. His weapons are good. His arm is strong. His defense is bad. That means a lot of passing, and the matchup is good. So, he's also only, $25 in our daily game, and the over-under on this one is 53 per BetMGM. So forget the ginger fist. Go with the... I don't have a funny name for Mike Glennon. Just go with him. That's funny enough. All right. Now I want to talk about a tight end because that's what I do. And, Arlington Heights, stand up. What's up, St. Viator's? By the way, worst parties in the northwest suburbs were always from Viator kids. Just saying. I know I did some flip cup back in the day. So the Bears' 2nd round selection, still scratching my head about that one, has surpassed Jimmy Graham, still scratching my head about that one. He has now managed to run 33 routes in back-to-back games. He's also seen red zone opportunities in back-to-back games, and he's taken on this Texans defense this defense is allowing over 70 receiving yards per contest. Give it to me, Cole Kmet. All right, it's time to take our final break here on Fantasy Football Live, but don't forget, Yahoo was rated the best fantasy sports app by the Fantasy Sports Gaming Association in 2019. Check out this week's top fantasy pickups and award-winning insight on the Yahoo Fantasy app today. When Fantasy Football Live returns, we'll get to as many roster questions as we can before kickoff, so don't go away. Just a few minutes left here on Fantasy Football Live. Let's get to some of those last-minute questions at the hashtag AskFFL. All right, this first one comes from Sarah, and she wants to know, Godwin or Deontay Johnson? Who wants to take it? Oh, no offers?
Oh, me.
How about you, Andy? Okay.
Yeah, give me Deontay Johnson here. We talked about him earlier in the show. I mean, last 4 weeks, he's seen double-digit targets. He's been the most heavily targeted Steelers receiver. No, it's not some super exciting downfield offense, anything like that. And yes, he's dropped the occasional pass. But at the kind of volume he's seeing, I'm just not worried at all. Like, the Bills are a fun team, and this is going to be a great game. But the Bills' defense has not been everything that we thought it might be coming into the year. So I think basically every week he's healthy, Deontay is a go.
Okay, Jared, this next question is for you, and it is from Jerry. Can the Cowboys who have lost me a lot of money this year finally get it done this week?
Oh, man, I hate to say it if you're a Cowboys fan. This is a bad week. I mean, it's been a bad year, but this is the 1 week to get your redemption. I just think the Bengals aren't playing their best ball. They've kind of taken it in for this season. And the Cowboys, I mean, in a weird scenario, they could possibly make the playoffs if everything fell their way. But I just think that this is a week where Andy Dalton, as you see on Tank and Andy's shirts, is primed to have a good game. And I love Ezekiel Elliott running the ball. He's been running tough, but he almost beat my Ravens, what he didn't. I just think the Cowboys actually be a solid bet to bet this week. So, yeah, let it run if you're a fan.
Okay, this next question is another quarterback question, another Kyler Murray question, another Josh Allen question. From Eric, which one to play? Matt, I think we know how you're going to land here. So, Tank, how do you feel?
Man, I feel like I've been giving Josh Allen the business the entire show. And I feel like Kyler Murray is still throwing up decent points, man. Like, I got to go with Kyler. I understand both of them have really tough matchups. I feel like Allen's matchup is tougher. And, you know, I'm going with Kyler. That's what it is.
That's what it is. All right. This next one comes from Sean, and Sean wants to ask, James Conner or Ronald Jones, or start both and sit Tyler Lockett? Oh, my goodness. We talked about James Conner a little bit. You know what? I think I'm going to do the thing that I probably shouldn't do, and that's start James Conner in this one. And I just can't sit Tyler Lockett. So that's my answer for you. Matt, we're almost at kickoff, so what's buzzing in the chat?
All right, I'm going to take two from a couple folks I've literally seen all show doing the right thing, asking their questions with good holiday-themed emojis. We're all in the holiday, Christmas, whatever spirit. Got a football emoji, a Christmas tree emoji, and a Santa emoji from Chuck on Facebook and a PPR. Good, always good to put the detail of the PPR when we're talking quarterbacks. Watson with Cook's out, Big Ben or Ryan Tannehill. Got to pick one here. I am actually going to go with Ryan Tannehill. Still mostly confident in Deshaun Watson, but that's just how much I believe in Ryan Tannehill and this Titans offense bouncing back and getting a big win over Jacksonville. He's my 4th-ranked quarterback this week. That's what I would do at that position. But Chuck also needs 2 wide receivers between T.Y. Hilton, DJ Chark, Brandon Ayuk, or Chase Claypool. And I feel like Brandon Ayuk is the pick there. He's been getting a lot of downfield looks. I like the way this matchup sets up with Washington and San Francisco. It's a revenge game for Alex Smith, but it's also a revenge game for Kyle Shanahan. A lot of revenges there. I would go with Brandon Ayuk for your wide receiver spot. Now, last one we're going to take, and I'm going to get Andy's help on this one because I'm an idiot and Andy is a smart man. We've got from Ryan on Facebook, the siren emojis. Love the siren emoji, but also we got a snowman and a snowflake. That's the holiday theme I'm looking for here, folks. Needs 2 at a flex in full PPR. The aforementioned Brandon Ayuk. He's got Deebo Samuel, Melvin Gordon, or Sterling Shepard. Andy, help me out with this one here.
I'm leaning slightly to Deebo over Ayuk if I have to pick just one Niners receiver. By the way, also a revenge game for Jordan Reed. That whole game is just full of revenge narratives. And then I'm gonna go Melvin Gordon as well. I think it's a great play. I think Gordon's a great play this week against Carolina. And no matter what way game flow goes in that one, like Melvin wins because he's seeing a few more snaps than Phillip Lindsay, and he's also the guy they throw to.
I 100% agree with everything you just said, Andy, because I just called you a smart man, and it would be mean of me to then disagree with you, and I would look like a clown. So let's take actually one more here from YouTube. Tom on YouTube just sent this one in. I have to replace Gaskins in a full PPR. Tough scene. Gio Bernard, Raheem Mostert, or DeAndre Washington. Whoa, it is got a little dicey there for Raheem Mostert with the Jeff Wilson show still going on. Am I stupid for playing Gio Bernard? Perhaps, but it is Dallas. We just saw Dallas get barreled over by the Ravens last week. Gio's still the only guy that's really getting any volume there. If this game is close and competitive, I feel like he's at least got a shot at a touchdown. You're in a tough spot having to replace Gaskins, but I would go with Gio Bernard there, Tom.
I think that's a good point, Matt. Also, probably Troy Aikman would start Gio Bernard in that situation as well. That's going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. Thank you for kicking off your NFL Sunday with us. Remember, you can connect with us all week long on the Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast. That's our podcast. Mad Bets daily on Yahoo Sports, and of course, back here every single Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. Good luck to all your fantasy teams in Week 14. We'll see you next week.